Welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. As always, I'm your host, Omar, and we talk about leadership when it comes to the retail world, specifically smaller retail places. We're talking about AV locations, we're talking about appliance stores, we're talking about furniture, we're talking about wireless retail. And what I want to talk about today is learning how as a leader, especially when you're a multi-unit and area an area manager or district manager, right, regional, when you're a leader that's got multiple locations, how to be able to actually delegate things out. And it always comes back to this thing of training and developing. Okay. And the reason I say that, you need to understand that you can't be commanding and directing multiple different locations and expect everything to run smooth. You're going to run yourself dry, you're going to run yourself, ratchet, because you're going to overextend your capabilities, and then you're going to leave your teams short because they're not going to have you as a leader at your full capacity. The other thing too that you need to understand is by allowing your local leaders, right, your store leadership, your leads, all of that, to be able to take additional responsibility that a lot of them really want to because they want to be more involved. Okay, this isn't throwing additional responsibilities on them that they don't want. These are people that want to grow, that want to grow and develop not only their skills but also the positions that they're in, and you have to allow that. And the easiest way is by teaching them how to be able to train and develop their own teams at their locations. Then you can start sending other people to go through training there at their locations to be able to learn and then take that information back. Because what ends up happening is you start becoming the bottleneck for their performance, for what they're capable of actually being able to achieve. And as a leader, you want to move away from that. You want to essentially start placing them strategically to be able to take over certain responsibilities because you're developing them to be able to take over your role. And you might be thinking, well, if I do that, I'm setting myself up to be replaced. And that is correct. You want to be able to be replaced because that allows you to be able to train other people and develop other people for your role, for your position. So when you do get promoted, when you do move into a different role, it isn't trying to find somebody. You got a multitude of individuals that can take up that mantle. And the beautiful thing is when you have too many people able to take up that mantle, but not enough positions within your organization to do it, or within your area, you now allow them to be able to take additional roles outside of that vicinity. If they're willing to travel, if they're willing to relocate, they start having these opportunities available to them. And I know you're going to say, well, what if they leave the organization? Well, what if they leave the organization? Right now, in this day and age, right, in 2026, that's bound to happen because a lot of organizations are trying to run lean. And we talked about this on the previous episode, right? Where that fallacy of that lean staffing actually produces better results. It doesn't. All it does is give you the reputation with clients and customers that you're understaffed. That you're understaffed and you're constantly churning employees, because really think of the employees that you have. How many of them have been with the organization for over a year? If your answer isn't 70+%, then there's something wrong with the organization. And you might be thinking, well, it's a nature of the beast. It's a nature of the industry. I'm here to tell you that it's not. Okay? Because I will tell you this. An employee that's only got 6 months tenure with you, and you expect them to be able to sell a multi-six-figure deal without any type of guidance, and when they're especially fresh, you got something that's wrong. Okay? Because I guarantee you're going to have a bunch of returns. I've seen it firsthand, right? Products that are sold incorrectly, it's not the right fit or needs for the clients, it's the wrong fucking color, right? Little things like that that end up adding to a lot of mistakes. And yes, listen, we learn through mistakes, but some of those mistakes can be easily avoidable through a little bit of guidance. And when you're training and developing your local leaders, right, you're coaching the coaches, you're training the trainers to be able to take up that role, to be able to do this thing, you will see how fast performance actually turns around. And where you were running lean and mean, you're now have a full bodied staff, right? You're fully staffed and employed where you got two or three people on the floor at any single time. And you'll see how much more they're able to actually produce and do together, and how better the quality metrics are. And if you're talking about, well, we need to also do events outside of the locations, now you have the ability to fully be able to do that without sacrificing at the store level. Because we all know this, when we're running lean, we also run the risk of negative NPS scores because either customers feel rushed, right? They feel that they're not being attended to because, oh, there's a bunch of other people, right? They need more staff at this store, so I'm going to give them a 2, I'm going to give them a 3 out of 5, right? I'm going to give them a, 3 out of 10, whatever the case is. They don't feel that their needs are being met. Or they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to go to this other location. It's a little bit further, but at least they always have somebody there. It's a little bit more of a wait, but there's always multiple people there. There's not one person that's trying to, help out 5 to 7 people. Because I cannot tell you how much that hurts when you got that many people that are waiting and you start seeing all those people walk out. You look at the cameras, you're like, man, we had 3, 4, 5 families walk out. What could have those been, right? What could have that turned into? How many of those customers are telling them to avoid that location because they don't have enough people working? There's not enough staff there. So it's finding that balance, but you also need to understand that finding that balance also comes through training and developing. Because if you're just throwing bodies in there and you expect them within 2 weeks to be able to turn around and do what your employee of 2 years tenure can do, there's something wrong. Okay? Well, Omar, they're coming from the same industry. Okay. Do they know the policies and procedures? Do they know how the company runs? Do they know the systems that this company is using compared to the previous company? Are they aware that they're going to have to do this instead of having to do that? That's what you guys don't understand sometimes, is that there are going to be differences in how organizations run. Okay? Because it's the nature of how an organization is run. There are some that are going to be a lot more closely related. I'm looking at you guys in the wireless industry. Okay? But even then, organization to organization, there are going to be differences in how things are operated and how things are ran. And that's one of the biggest things that you need to understand, is that it's not an apples to apples comparison, even within the same industry. When you're talking about appliances, okay, is it the seller that's responsible for everything, or are they going to be pairing up with a project manager to be able to take over the other operation, right? We've already sold it. Now we're looking at the fulfillment side. Right now, we're looking at the actual sales process, but are they doing it solo, or are they going to be partnering with somebody who's going to be able to help through the logistics of that? Okay. Are they needing to schedule everything with a third party? Is it an in-house delivery? Like, what are we working with? What are we talking about? Those are the small things that end up causing a lot of friction. And a lot of that can be solved through training and developing, through focusing on making sure that they understand where we're coming from, how we're operating, right? The systems that we're using to be able to check out people, the POS. We don't have a POS. We don't have a CRM. Those are the conversations that need to be had. Those are the training points that need to be taken care of. And when you allow your local leaders to actually have the time to do that, having the tools, the frameworks, and the knowledge to be able to do that, it means that you, as a area leader, as a district, as a regional, as a multi-unit, it doesn't matter, okay? It allows you to focus on other aspects of the business, right? Where okay, this individual is 70, 80% capable of what I'm going to do. That's great. That's good enough. We're not looking for perfect. We're looking for good enough, because they will get better over time. So allow them to start taking over the responsibilities. And now, instead of you handling everything, you split that responsibility so that you can focus elsewhere. And you can now start training somebody else. They may only be as good as 60 to 70% of what you're capable of. But guess what? That allows a little bit more leverage. So now you can be able to focus your attention on the other locations that need it. And now you're going to start seeing their performance start to increase. And as the training and development continues, you're going to start to notice and you're going to start to see that the performance of your teams is going to improve because your teams feel heard. They feel that, you know what, this individual is actually investing and cares about what we're doing, how we're performing, because they want to make sure that we're solid, that we're good. Guys, we work in sales. We're sales leaders. Okay. Your people get paid on commissions and bonuses. They're not there for the hourly. The goal is to make sure that they can make as much as possible, and that is your goal as a leader. And you need to reinforce that and keep telling your people and reminding your people of that, because you also need to remind yourself of that. That your goal as a leader is to make sure your team is capable of not only hitting their commissions and their bonuses, but also taking care of their clients and customers. Because clients and customers that come back do a lot more business and they refer a lot more people to your employees, to your teams, to your locations. And that's what you're looking at. When you talk to a seller and you tell them, like, hey, John, my goal is to make sure that you can make as much as possible. What seller in their right mind that you've hired, that you say this person is solid, is going to be great, is going to say, no, I don't want to make as much as I can. And then when you couple that with, I want you to make as much as possible, working the least amount. What do you mean? Do you want to make more by working less? Yes, I do. And we're going to get there by training. We're going to get there by developing your skills. Because when they've developed their skills and they've had adequate training, it doesn't feel like extra work. It doesn't feel like they're doing more. Because they're able to go through the flow. They're able to process and think of the scenarios and be able to actually walk with the client, ask the right questions, be able to discover more, and actually fit the needs that the customer had and the needs that the customer has that they didn't even know that they had, right? Because customers value the value of what they're getting when it actually solves issues for them. And that's a huge one. That is a huge one. Oftentimes, especially for new sellers, when you're throwing them out on the floor and you're not giving them training, they don't know what their goal really is. So they just think it's to sell, sell, sell. And then they wonder why they're getting so many returns, why they're getting so many cancellations, why they're getting so many non-pays, right? And that's what kills us. Because I always reiterate to my teams, it doesn't matter what you sell. It matters what sticks. Because the customer that keeps those items, that keeps those services, is what you're getting paid on. Because if they sold it and it's supposed to get delivered 3-4 weeks down the road and then they cancel it, you're not getting paid. Right? That's what you need to understand. That's what your sellers need to understand. That it's not about just selling it. It's about making sure it sticks and the client and customer is happy about what they got. And they'll be happy because it's the experience, or it's more of the experience that they're getting than they realize they could get, right? Think about like AV spaces, home theater systems, or living room systems. Because I've had it where instead of selling a sound bar, hey, we actually built out a nice system and keep things flush and hidden or as pleasing to the eye as possible, but yet giving them that audio that they were looking for so that they can host, so that they can be able to enjoy music when they got friends and family over, so that they don't have to worry about their kids, accidentally touching this or breaking that because the equipment is flush in the wall, because the equipment, the AV system is located somewhere else where the kids don't have to be able to or aren't going to be able to get into, right? They don't have to worry about that. Where the aesthetics of the room is nice because they don't have this gaudy equipment that doesn't flow, that doesn't mesh with the feng shui, right? Those are the kind of things that you're looking for. And you'd be surprised where that matters more to a lot of clients, a lot of customers, right? Cell phone services. You'd be surprised how many times you could be able to add more lines when the customer understands it'll be a better deal, when they're getting a better service for what they were paying for, right? I've had one that, saved $150 for the same amount of lines, better service, because I was just asking a couple more questions and understanding their needs and saying, hey, we got a great plan. This is what we can do. And you're going to get new devices as well. It's a no brainer. Okay. Little things like that can make a difference. But it comes to asking questions, and your team can't ask the right questions if they're not getting properly trained, if they're not going through some type of development. And then your teams that are doing the training, that are doing the development, that are being the mentor, right? Those team members, they're also gaining more knowledge than what they could get before. Think about that, for instance. Your trainer is getting better at training people and also better at being able to work with different personality types, because that's the thing that gets a lot of leaders, a lot of managers at the beginning, is learning how to work with different personality types, because they think it should be this way every single time, and it's not. There's certain personality types. People learn in different ways. They understand things differently. So working through that. And I'll give you this tidbit that a lot of people don't do, but it's the easiest way to understand what your team members know. When you go over something, don't ask them, do you understand? Have them explain it to you, right? So that you could learn it. That tells you what they understood, and more importantly, what they're missing. Because it's not I'm telling you this, you take it and then figure it out. It's, all right, let's go over this. Explain it to me so that, I could learn it. And then that's when they start to understand it more. We know this from grade school, where if you have somebody who's struggling in a certain subject or a certain category, have them explain it to somebody else. That goes a long way, because now they're taking responsibility, right? For learning the material so that other people can understand it. And that's the issue, guys, is that oftentimes we run into this, well, it's just easier for me to tell them what to do. Yes, it's easier for you, but shit doesn't get done. Things are not being met. Metrics aren't being hit. See that how that works? You told them because it was easier for you, but things aren't getting done. So take the extra effort and make sure those things are actually being done by having them explain it to you, having them take over that and take responsibility for it. Because then they will actually want to do something with it and actually learn from it, guys. That's the big one, is learning from the material, learning from what they're doing and retaining the information. You can't expect to tell people, do this, this, and this, and then you leave. And when there's no follow-up, wonder why shit's not getting done. Especially when they don't know or don't have the skill set to do it. That's why having a structured training goes a long way in making sure that your teams know what they're doing, understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, so that they can flourish. And when they flourish, right, when they actually get things, and I was like, that aha moment, I was like, oh, that was so easy. I can just keep doing that, and I have a higher probability of getting this result. Sweet. That's why I'm a big proponent of that 90-day training period, especially for new hires, because it gives you and them that time frame to go through material, and they don't feel like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Because when they don't know what they're doing, the likelihood that they're going to leave is going to be much greater. But when they feel that they're being supported along the way, that allows them to see, oh, that is good. I didn't know it was that easy. I can do this. And when they can see themselves doing it more often, that is when it's going to be done more often. Hey, why didn't you hit this KPI? Why didn't you add more warranty protections to your appliances? Right? This is what you need to do. Okay. So they start adding it. They start slamming it. And then they're wondering why, like, hey, orders are getting canceled, or the warranties are getting canceled before delivery. Like, I didn't want this. Instead of, hey, How can we pitch this warranty, right? What is your pitch? Go ahead and use it on me. Little things like that. And we're talking about small 15-minute training sessions, not a big 2 3 hour training. There's not much that a seller is really going to retain from that that's going to help you truly understand what is going on. Because the reality is, that's not how people retain information. You telling them is not how people retain information. They'll retain 10 to 20% of what was said. If you want them to retain 70 to 80%, the action is part of what they're going to be doing. And that's where training, where role playing comes into effect. And in locations where you may not have the ability to do a lot of role plays or you don't have a lot of time in between, okay, doing focused training, grab that 15-minute framework, right? It's in the description. That goes a long way in helping them run through multiple scenarios, role play scenarios from actual interactions that they had. They've lived it. And by role playing it in their head, they're living it again. So they're going through it and they're saying, I could have said this during this. Okay, so on my next one, I'm going to do this. That is one of the biggest psychological breakthroughs that you're going to realize. Okay, it's one of the biggest foundations when it comes to training that a lot of people don't utilize. It's not the act of role playing itself, it's running through those scenarios as role plays and being able to do multiple ones, because that is where the training happens. That is the practice sessions, not the customer interactions. Customer interactions are game day, not practice. And that is how you get your teams from being flounders to being great at what they're doing. Guys, I want to say thanks again for stepping into another episode here at Sales Manager Academy podcast. I want to hear what you guys are doing. I want to hear what's working for you, what's not working. So send me a DM, leave it in the comments. Let's work through this and let's get you and your sales teams above ground, above the red, working where you don't feel stressed out. As always, guys, don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you on the next one.